Hey guys, Alex here, Senza Tempo Cane Corso. We're going to be asking Rachel some questions that you guys submitted through YouTube, email, and Facebook. So the first question's from Mona. She says she has a 100-pound male boxer / lab Roddy mix. She got him at 7 weeks old and he recently turned 2 years old. He's been terrified of people and dogs when she first got him, and she would bring him to the dog park every other day until he was about 18 months old to get him used to other dogs and people. It took 15 months of doing this to expose or to stop him from running away, hiding and growling whenever he saw other people or dogs. Now he can be in the dog park without running away from people. He completely ignores people but is overly interested in other dogs. To add to that, he compulsively pees on every inch of the dog park, and he loves puppies and small adult dogs. With females, depending on the female, he may either obsessively butt sniff or completely ignore them. With other males who are intact, his tail shoots straight up, his hackles go up, and he goes face to face with the other dog and freezes. He will usually place his head over the dog's back and try to hump him. And so recently there was a lab mix at the dog park, and they went face to face. The lab turned around and snapped at her dog. She didn't correct him, but then the unexpected happened, and instead of jumping back, her dog froze, and the dog attacked, or the dogs went towards each other. And then and they attacked each other, but neither dog was hurt, and both dogs coexisted after the fight. Her question is my dog dominant or still unsure of himself? Is this the beginning stages of dog aggression? Did I do wrong by not correcting him at the dog park and letting other dogs correct him? Should I quit going to the dog park? And those are her questions.
Okay, so your boy is insecure, and he went from being really scared to now being, kind of, well, what a lot of bullies are, which are insecure bullies. And so, he's going around and trying to push his weight around now that he knows that he's kind of a force to be reckoned with. He's probably, by the sound of it, a kind of a big dog. So, when your question is, well, is this beginning signs of aggression? My answer to that is going to be, no, he's already been aggressive. His need to go on and approach like that in that aggressive way and put his head over the back, which is a very, very obvious form of aggression, is, it's no different than, a kid going around and pushing other students around, trying to make sure they understand that he's the one in charge. So your dog is the one who's that bully. And I highly suggest that you interrupt that behavior. You're going to need to take him, probably put him in submissive posture, take him over to where you're sitting, make him go to a timeout. Don't let him up until he's ignoring all the other dogs and he's fine. If he gets up and tries to go back over to the dog again, you do the same thing over again. And you're going to keep doing that until he learns that if he tries to go dominate, then you are going to dominate him. And that's what I do with my dogs. All my dogs understand, if you try to dominate, I dominate you, right? That's just how I am as the alpha. If you watch wolf documentaries, everyone who's watching, I highly recommend Living with Wolves by Jim and Jamie Dutcher, I believe it is. If you buy the DVD, there's 2 of them, well worth it. It is just a study of wolf behavior, and you will see that, that the alpha definitely does, show their weight, and they will step in when other wolves are trying to dominate. They will step in and make sure everybody knows, hey, you may think you're tough, you may be over here trying to dominate or whatever, but they'll come in and they'll check that dog, and it may make sure that everybody maintains a level of of decency to some degree. You know, it keeps fighting to a minimum. And that's my role as the alpha as well in my house. I don't allow fighting. If you try to fight, then you're gonna have to deal with me, and you're not gonna wanna do that, so they don't even try. That's usually what happens. Hormones aside, that's usually what happens. If your dog is neutered, it isn't, you don't have to worry about that. So, you know, you're gonna be able to have that level of control once you do it. So, you know, you're just gonna need to work with him on that and make sure that he understands that that's not appropriate behavior.
And definitely don't quit going to the dog parks. Those are great places to socialize your dog and correct those kinds of behaviors. Just always, when those situations arise, you want to be on top of it, and never hesitate to correct your dog.
Don't think of it as play. Like, just everybody who thinks their dog is playing, don't think of it as playing. If your dog is going around jumping on the other dogs, mounting the other dogs, recognize that dogs value their personal body space, okay? And, you know, they do not appreciate, just like you wouldn't appreciate another, like humans are the same way. We wouldn't appreciate somebody walking up, some random person walking up to us and like literally like, you know, shoving us around and jumping all over us and stuff. Like, you're not gonna like that. And most dogs don't either. You may find the random dog that'll play like that, but then you're also gonna find the one that won't and is gonna get really mad and attack your dog. So, you know, training your dog to play in a healthy way at a dog park isn't just about good training and being a good owner. It's also about protecting the life of your dog. Because if your dog is disrespectful to a dog that is much bigger, much more powerful than them, which usually they do try to go after bigger dogs than them, your dog could get seriously injured if not killed. So it is very important that you take it seriously and get it sorted so that it's not an issue.
All right, our next question comes from Manoli, and she's asking, she has a 12-week-old Rottweiler puppy who's very disrespectful. He keeps growling and trying to bite her whenever she tries to correct him. Okay. What should she do to correct the behavior?
Okay, so with dogs like that, you have one or two options you can do. When you are trying to correct him, if he's trying to bite you, that is something that has to be corrected. Treats are not going to fix that. You need to correct it. So you can either do one of two things. Now, what I always do when I think about how to train an animal is I look to nature and I say, what does an alpha female do? What does, if I'm watching Cashmere with their puppies, what does she do when one of her puppies tries to bite her? Well, she takes her mouth and she puts it over the puppy's mouth. She doesn't try to hurt the puppy. She's not putting pressure, but she is removing the mouth from being a weapon that the puppy can use. So I will often, if a puppy tries, especially when I work with my puppies early on, they will try to do that initially with us. And we do a lot of pre-training work with them before they ever leave our home. When they're literally 4 weeks old, they start trying to, they'll be fighting with each other or whatever, and then you go in there to pick one of them up, and they may think that you're just a puppy, and they'll reach around and try to take your hand off. And at that point, they're really mad. So, you know, what I do is I'll just lay them over on their back in submissive posture. And if they're really going crazy and, you know, whatever, then I'll just do like the mama will. I'll just take my hands just like this, press it over their mouth, and just, you know, make them, and literally within seconds, usually they stop. They do this initial, they try to fight it off, and then as soon as they realize, okay, I'm not gonna be able to beat this person, then they stop, just like they do with their mother. Now with a 12-week-old puppy, that's a bit bigger, so if you can't do that with your hand without really struggling, I don't want you to hurt the dog, that's not the intended purpose, not even the mom does that, then get yourself a muzzle. Because it is imperative that you are able to manage that dog without it trying to bite you. It needs to understand that the mouth isn't gonna get him anywhere. He's not gonna be able to bite you one way or the other. So, as long as you do that, you put him in submissive posture, make him calm down, and then what you do is you set boundaries. Not allowed on the couches, not allowed in your bed, not allowed in your space. He needs to have his own spot in the house. So you put it somewhere that you can see it. And whenever he's bad like that, he needs to go to timeout for at least 5 minutes, if not more than that. He doesn't get up until you say so. If he gets up, you lead him right back. He goes right back to his spot, and he doesn't get up until you say so. When you do let him up, don't be like, oh, come here, I love you so much, blah, 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 blah. You know, most likely, When you let him up, maybe he'll come over, maybe he'll try to love on you. Maybe he'll try to be really submissive and kissy and this and that. And what I do is I'll let them lay next to me, but I'm not going to give them a bunch of affection and all that. I'm not going to. Think of a father's love, right? Think of love. What do we think is valuable? Everything in life that is valuable is somewhat scarce, right? It doesn't mean that a father doesn't love you. It's kind of like a teacher that you have that maybe isn't like overly, they don't give you a lot of praise, right? But the thing is that, they're kind of hard to please. But when you do please them, when you do something right, then when they do give you that praise, it means so much more, and you're so inspired to do more. And that's, makes you work really hard. Coaches are like that. And like I said, it's more of like a father's love. Whereas a mother's love is always there. It's unconditional. It's oh, here, let me love you and take care of you, blah, blah, blah. That's not an alpha's love. An alpha's love is like a father's love. They will give affection, but not always. And when you do get that affection, when that light does shine down on you, then it means that much more, and they really work for it. So if you've got a dog that's taking your love for granted, then don't give it out so much, and set those clear, firm boundaries and let him know that, this isn't his house, his rules. He needs to do what he's told, be respectful, or he's not going to appreciate things very much.
All right, our next question comes from Jessica, and she is wondering what you feed your dogs. Their coats look sleek and beautiful.
So I feed, right now we're doing a mix because we're transitioning over to Origin. So we're doing a mix of a Costco beef blend to Origin red meat. Gosh, I forget which one it is, but it's this Origin red meats one. The reason that I switched over to that is because it has a lot more taurine in it. Taurine is the issue that we're seeing in the pet food crisis right now. We're not sure if it's the legumes or the lectins or what it is, if it's a lack of taurine or if it's affecting taurine absorption, but it is essential that they get that. So taurine is in a lot of organ meats, especially heart. So Origin has a lot of that. It does have legumes, but they're down at the very they're way more down at the bottom than most of the dog foods are. Now it's incredibly expensive, so it is our goal to move over to a raw diet. At the price we're paying right now for Origin, we could do raw. Like there's just no way around it. So we're researching the best way to do that, and once we do, then we're going to transition over into entirely raw. Having said that, we do still give our dogs raw in combination with kibble. We'll usually do, if we're gonna do it, we'll do raw in the morning and the kibble at night, or vice versa. We don't do it at the same time. And we like to give them organ meats, like chicken hearts. I like to give them beef cheek. They love beef cheek. Liver, you don't wanna give them too much of that at one time because it will give them the runs. And then we like to give them chicken leg quarters. And so, we'll just throw in different meats like that from time to time. And then other than that, I also give them about a tablespoon of, Kerrygold butter, which is a grass-fed butter, and they like it. And I don't know why, it's just a habit, I give it to them. So, yeah.
All right, next question comes from Kelly. And she has 2 Cane Corso puppies. One is an 8-month-old female. The other is a 6-month-old male. She says she has been super lax on her training. She recently got a consultation through a local trainer, and she thought it was awesome. She's just not ready to commit to it, and she just wanted to know where to start and what suggestions you had for beginners.
Okay.
Just getting into it.
Cool. So what I would suggest is taking the dogs out and working with them individually. I would, instead of going out on a walk, I would go out into a field and work on your sit, your stay, your lay down, your recall, all of it. The reason I say that is because you need to treat them like a horse. You need to make sure that you do all your groundwork, that animal is completely trained before you just take them out into the world with everybody else, because if something happens and spooks that animal, you need to be able to maintain control. So it is not a good idea to just go right out on a walk with a dog that hasn't been trained and very well trained. So I say go to a park that maybe doesn't have a lot of people. Maybe you go at a certain time when there's not a lot of people, and just start working on sit, stay, lay down. And you want to make sure that you don't go in a very consistent pattern. You want to be sporadic. That way the dog is forced to look to you to direction. He doesn't know where he's going. So it forces the dog to get into a pattern of looking to you for direction, which is really essential if you're trying to gain obedience and respect from the dog. Other than that, you want to make sure that you set clear boundaries as far as keeping them out of your space. If you are having disrespect, like growling back at you, which a lot of people get scared of growling, it's honestly not that big of a deal. You don't want to let it go. You don't want to not correct it, but it's not a precursor to a dog mauling you and eating your family. It is a dog's way of communicating to you that he doesn't like something you're doing. And if your dog is growling at you over, like Preacher used to do when he was a puppy, if he was on the couch with us, he would, if we tried to move him off the couch, he would growl at us. So eventually we got to the point we didn't let him up on the couch, right? He lost that privilege. If you can't handle that privilege, if you're gonna be disrespectful, then you don't get it anymore. You lose that privilege. So we put him down and he's not up there anymore, right? And that hurt his feelings because he couldn't be up by us, and it set a clear boundary. So he's allowed on the couch now, but that's because he knows he has to be respectful. So that's what I would suggest. When you feed them, put the food down, make sure that they wait for you to eat the food, just like you see on Caesar Milan. It is just another way of you exercising your authority. That's all you're doing. You want to take every opportunity you can to exercise your authority. You're communicating to the dog, I'm the one in charge, you do what I say. And that's natural to them. They will respect that. They will love you for it in the same way that a child needs boundaries and limitations and rules, and they respect their parents for giving that to them. Children often respect their fathers, who are more than likely the main disciplinarian, and that's because we're all hardwired to respect the hierarchy. So yeah, except those of us that want to be alphas. that's the crux to that.
All right, the next question comes from Adalia, and she is asking she has a couple of different questions, so I'll just kind of shoot them off to you. The first one is, where should the dogs, as puppies, be housed while you're at work? So it depends on the dog. If you can leave your dog out and your dog's not going to do anything wrong, then feel free to leave him out. I will kennel my dogs if I don't trust them. I got a security system recently that allows me to communicate through it. I put it in a spot where it kind of sounds like it's coming from my room. So I trained my dogs by leaving them out, and then as I saw them getting into stuff, I would speak through the thing and tell them, oh, you're a bad dog, go lay down your spot, right? And they would, oh gosh, they'd get all scared like I was actually in here, and they would go lay down. They would sit there and they'd be staring, like trying to look like, where is she at? And I'd tell them, oh, you better lay down. And then they'd be like, oh my God, she actually sees me. And so they would lay down. And after a couple times of that, they learn that somehow I'm always watching and they get over it. They really do stop. I haven't had any problems with it. Now, do I leave them out together? No, I do not. Why? Because I have unneutered, unspayed animals, and that means that their hormones are going to be going a lot more than other animals, and that means that there could be hierarchy play. Now, would I leave Preacher and Cashmere out together? That's more likely. Because that's a male and a female, so I'd probably get away with that, but I wouldn't leave my whole pack out together. And you also want to make sure, even if you've trained them both separately to be okay, if you put them out together, you need to make sure that you monitor that as well, to make sure that they don't kind of get themselves into trouble by instigating play and then just getting into stuff. So that's also something to keep in mind, is that just because you have them trained separately doesn't mean they're trained together. And if you can't do that, kennel them up. It's not a big deal. A lot of dogs are fine. Kenneling is not
a bad thing. It really genuinely isn't. I've had dogs that when we have the kennel, we leave it open, they'll go in and sleep in their own kennel on their own. So I'm sure there's tons of video of that on YouTube you could find. It's not a bad deal.
The next question is similar to that, and she wants to know when you're at home and everything, should you let your puppy roam freely throughout the house?
I wouldn't let a puppy, not a puppy. And the reason for that is because puppies have short memory. So if you correct that puppy and he goes back to a spot and then you think it's fine and maybe you're doing your work day and you just forget about it and you're not watching the camera, then that puppy could get into something, and puppies are more inclined to chew on things than even adult dogs are. So that puppy could get into something, you may not even see it. It could get a blockage, it could get into an electrical thing and die. So it really is about the puppy safety. I don't even allow my dogs to be out unsupervised until probably at least 9-10 months old, when they're past that stage of chewing on everything and just being all playful like that. And another thing to think about, people, is if you do have a security system and it talks to cops, do not leave your dogs out, okay? And the reason for that is because if your alarm system goes off and the police officers come in your house, they're gonna shoot your dog. There have been cases of that happening in Texas, and the cops do not get in trouble for it, even if they have signs that say, we've got a dog, blah, blah, blah. We had a case even where it was an accident. Like I don't know how the alarm went off, but it was an accident. There was no burglar in the home. The cops came over, lots of signs that said beware of the dog. They came in, shot the dog. It was a Rottweiler, and they got away with it. I mean, I don't mean to say got away with it, because I'm sure that they feel that they need to protect themselves, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't know dog body language, so it gets misinterpreted. So it is a weird one for me, because I feel as though that there are different ways of handling that, and that with education, maybe people could be trained to really identify whether or not a dog is actually a threat or not. So having said that, like I said, if you have a security system that contacts the police, do not leave your dog out, okay? If you want a dog as a security system, that's fine. Our dogs do that. We have a security system. It doesn't talk to cops, okay? It notifies me. I know immediately. But I don't have one that goes and alerts to the cops, because I don't want them showing up. That's what I've got the dogs for. The dogs are my line of defense. They're gonna do an excellent job. It goes right to my phone. I know what's going on. If I need to do something, I can call the cops. But just keep that in mind, okay?
And so she really wants to get a general idea of how you would go about raising a puppy to be weaned off of being crate trained. And so like how you would keep the puppy on a normal day, your ideal situation as far as monitoring them
right.
throughout the day, and then going into adulthood, how you would transition them to being in the house by themselves.
Yeah, so I would start that, or like I said, at around 9 or 10 months old, I would start that. After they start really kind of settling down and kind of, you'll notice where they start to transition out of that puppy phase. And then what you want to do is you want to test it out. So what Alex and I did whenever we first started doing this is we literally went, I think, like down the road the first time, and we did it. And what we realized is that you want the camera to be somewhere that the dog can't find it. If the dog can see the camera and see that it is coming from the camera, they'll ignore it. So it needs to be a place where they think it's actually you in a different room and they just didn't know you were in there. And so that's very important. And then, like I said, you do small amounts of time first, okay? And like I said, your dog needs to have a spot, because that's what you're telling your dog to do. You can't just say, oh, get out of it, You need to make sure that your dog knows, when I say you go to your spot, then you go to your spot, because that's what I would do. Oh, you're a bad dog, you go to your spot. And they would go there and they would lay down. And so that is what is essential. You start off at small periods of time and you work up to what works for you and how you can make it work. Personally, I've never done it without a security system. I think that if you were gonna do it without it, then, you should probably do it, like I said, in small increments, but, you just come over maybe and tell the puppy to go to his spot and lay down, and then maybe sit outside, maybe go to a window and watch, and if he gets up, you're a bad dog, and you make him go and you make him sit in his spot, and you just keep practicing that longer and longer and longer until he realizes that he just needs to stay in that spot. But honestly, having that, you can get a really cheap nanny cam to your phone, and it just does wonders. I mean, you know, technology exists today. Try to use it. It'll make it a whole lot easier.
And then her final question is that she wants to get a Cane Corso puppy. She currently has a small rescue dog that sleeps with her and her husband, and she wants to know if she would need to kennel that dog at night or crate that dog at night.
So
when getting a new puppy.
Yeah. So a lot of people do that. I don't. I'm pretty strict as a trainer on a lot of things, but I also am very lenient in others. And it's probably because I'm so strict that I'm able to get away with a lot of that stuff. But I love to sleep with my dogs. I just do. I love my dogs. They're family. So I don't, you know, I see them as animals, but I also see them as, you know, as much as a very special kind of animal, I guess. There's a very special bond there. And I would imagine that there was probably a time where humans slept with their dogs just for the shared warmth. And I sleep when it's I sleep with it really cold at night. I love to. So I do enjoy my dogs to help keep me warm. So you know, I'm not gonna sit there and say, oh, you need to kennel that puppy every night and you need to do this and that. What I will say is if you don't sleep with your dog, then you should kennel them, because the odds are they're gonna get up in the middle of the night, they're gonna pee and poop all over your house. And if you don't wake up every time to do something about that, then that's gonna be a problem. What you can do to help that is you can put a bell on the dog's necks, and hopefully you're a light sleeper. So when the puppy does get up, you can get up and take the puppy out to go to the bathroom. And that is a way that you could leave them out and not kennel them, but you're still gonna have to get up throughout the night and take them out. If you kennel them, you're gonna have to put up with probably a minimum, from what I've heard, of around 3 days of incessant crying and howling and absolute nonsense and sleepless nights while they transition to getting used to sleeping in a kennel at night. So, you know, so that's my advice to that. It's really personal preference of what you want to do and the route that you want to take. I personally don't subscribe to anyone telling me what I should do with my dogs. I do what works. And for me, that's what works. I sleep with my puppies. I'm a light sleeper, so I know when they wake up. When I feel them moving, I grab them. I take them out to go to the bathroom if they're that age where they are still young enough to where they do that. Most of the time, dogs won't go to the bathroom where they sleep, so it's usually not a problem. They'll usually hold it through the night. So a lot better than a puppy that's on the ground. They're not going to. You're gonna have to wake up and take them out. So, so that's my advice on that.
All right, guys. Well, if you have more questions for Rachel, you can comment below or email us. And if you guys want to see more of these videos, go ahead and like and subscribe. All right, we'll see you guys around.
Bye.